Yeah, thanks, Tim. Uh, what we see on that front page is a photo of the main project area I'm going to talk about today, the Katanning Gold Project. And what we see there is the Jinkers Hill in the central zone. So what I'll do is I'll take you through a number of things we're doing at the moment. And if I could just go to the next two slides, please. Thank you. So over the last year, we've had a lot of developments within the company. Just recently, we announced a 2.16 million ounce resource at Katanning. And it's really focused around that first picture I showed you at Jinkers Hill in that central zone. Over the last year, we've added 960,000 ounces to that resource. We've done that at a very low discovery cost of $11 per resource ounce. Importantly, we've also increased the measured and indicated component of that resource, which now stands at 1.78 million ounces. So I'll show you that on a few long sections and maps just to put that into context. But what we're targeting here is a standalone operation producing more than 100,000 ounces per annum for a long life of mine. And I'll take you through why we think that that's possible. We're pretty advanced now on our pre-feasibility study, and we'll expect to see that out very shortly. Some of the things that we've been coming through this feasibility study have really highlighted the advantages of having a project that's not a remote project by any stretch of the imagination. We're located only 3.5 hour drive out of Perth to the southeast. And located in a farming community of Katanning. So it's quite a different project to a lot of the other gold projects you see around Western Australia, but it's in line with some of the discoveries we're starting to see around the southwest Yilgarn, including the Julimar discovery. So what I'll do is go to the next slide, please. I'll just take you through what the company looks like. Including the management and the directors. I'm the managing director and have been with the company since 2017. I'm a geologist by background, a lot of experience in terms of exploration and development. We have a really well-qualified board. Richard Lockwood is our chairman. Dennis sits with me in Perth as a non-exec director. And Jeff Jones, Neil Ferris, and Tim Kestel's are non-exec directors. So we've got a very strong team in terms of the board. We're well financed. We've got about $12.5 million in the bank. And what I'll do is I'll show you what we're planning to do with that to increase the value of the company. So next slide, please. So where we're located is just southeast of Perth. We've got a large tenement holding around that. Because we were early movers and had that advantage, we were able to pick up a number of fairly advanced prospects around our Katanning Gold Project. So although we're focused on, with our study work, a standalone operation, there's also a lot of opportunities to increase life of mine and look at discovery elsewhere in a large greenstone belt in the southwest. One of the advantages of being in a farming community is the access to infrastructure. We've got grid power to site, and we've actually seen that through our study work that we'll be able to access that for processing. So it's a real cost advantage. And as we're seeing across the world, and particularly in the East Coast in Australia, the cost of power is escalating. We're not seeing that in Western Australia by the same scale. And also having access to grid power really takes away some of the reliance on diesel or natural gas that otherwise would be a source of energy. So it's a real advantage. Having a township there as well really gives a lot of advantages in terms of a stable workforce. Again, that's another thing that we're seeing across a lot of projects is access to workforce. So one of the things we've seen with this study is that advantage playing out through some of the costs we're seeing coming into the development of the project. Could you take me to the next slide, please? We've been obviously working up a number of the aspects of the Katanning Gold Project, and what we're seeing is the things such as metallurgy are excellent. We've seen that there's a coarse gold component in here that we see up to 69% recovery out of coarse gravity. And that really lowers the cost in terms of processing. It's a very straightforward CR processing flow sheet that representing. We're looking at a 3 million tonne per annum plant on site there. And that's where we see that our 100,000 ounce target for this feasibility study per annum. So it's a very simple, well-trodden path, and I think that's something that you want to see out of any gold project, is that there's no complexity here. It's a very straightforward, simple flow sheet. Next slide, please. So what we've got in store for the next 6 months or so is we're working on the feasibility study at the moment. Very shortly, you'll see that maiden ore reserve come out. Following that work, we've got a number of other studies ready to start. There'll be further optimization work around the plant and the metallurgy, and any potential scaling that we can do on that, and looking to take that through to definitive studies late this year and early next year. Alongside that, we've got some baseline environmental studies that we've completed, but also further work underway, and working in with the community consultation and the approvals process. We're doing that in parallel with the definitive studies to ensure that we can deliver the project in a reasonable amount of time. Alongside that, we've got ambitions for further resource growth. We've committed to doing a substantial RC and diamond program in extensions to the main resource areas, and I can show you some of the work we've already completed. We've got results pending on some of that recent RC drilling, but we have a diamond rig on site at the moment, targeting some of what we think is extensions at depth of the current resource. We've also got a number of other regional targets that we've been following up on, and some of those are co-funded by the state government's EIS drilling co-funding agreement. So that's fantastic. A scheme that enables us to target some of these conceptual targets at a relatively low cost. So if you could take me to the next slide, please. For those who are unfamiliar with the project, it's a large geochemical anomaly extending over 17 kilometres along a very large crustal scale fault. And that's important because that enables us to look at a very large scale mineralised system. In this image here, you can see on the slide, it's a aeromagnetic image with the golden soil shown near surface there. And you can see that very long trend of gold mineralisation. What we're focused on is really what we call the central zone in this study, although we have included some of the resource at the Dingo area to the south there. So really the study's looking at that 2 million ounces coming out of that central zone. So could we go to the next slide, please? So looking at our current resource position there, you can see dominantly that central zone, so centered around the Jinkers Hill, which is that first slide I showed you. There's been some absolutely sensational grades intercepted in drilling throughout the project's history and in some of our recent drilling. We've also been completing drilling in that area just above the legend to the block model on the top right-hand side there, just under the Jackson label there. And that's really looking at extensions to potential underground. Most of the drilling here has been really focused in at that top 150 metres. So really looking at open pit resource. And that's the focus of the PFS. We're not considering any underground options at this stage. We're really looking at producing that 100,000 ounces per annum for a long life of mine, purely from an open cut perspective. For the future, though, we see there's opportunities for obtaining high-grade material at depth, and that's what we're testing with some of our new drilling there, which is well supported by downhole EM. It's a geophysics technique that we know works very well for this deposit. Although it's slightly novel, it's been used by companies such as Bellevue to target their underground resources there. You can see in the long section just below that grade one is showing the measured indicated resources, and the red and yellow there indicates those measured indicated areas that will be included in our maiden ore reserve. So good portion of our resource sits in that category, a lot of high confidence material, and it's exciting times as we're starting to commercialize that and putting around some engineering numbers and looking at what this project can deliver. So the next slide, please. What the deposit looks like in section is it's a series of folds. So for the geologists out there, the lodes are folded in on themselves, and that's why we've got these very high grade shoots. There's a number of these folds, and in between those there's mineralization, but what we target with our drilling is those folded positions which respond well to downhole EM and have those very high grade and the bonanza grades that we're searching for. So that will be part of what we look for as this underground targets. So next slide, please. I've mentioned this underground targets. At the moment, we're reporting a small underground resource there. We're looking to expand that throughout the year, and really that's something we'll look at in the future for that potential. But if we keep moving on to the next slide, please. What I'll briefly talk about is what we call the southern zone. At the moment, we have 220,000 ounces at the Dingo resource. We think that's got room to expand both to the north in an area called the Rifle Range. Next slide, please. And way to the south, where we have over 8 kilometres of strike length, shown in that map image there with the red contour, which is 0.1 gram gold in air core drilling. We've got a substantial strike length there. There's a lot of work to be done there, and we'll see results coming through over the summer months as we really get into that through our field season. But you can see from the previous drilling there over the last 6 months or so, really some sensational results from that Dingo resource, and there's a lot of room to grow that, which at the moment only represents a small percentage of that total 2 million ounce resource. Could we keep going, please? Next slide. Just briefly, we've got a large regional position. We've got a number of advanced prospects around the Katanning Gold Project. We're really looking at that central zone as a standalone, but for the future, you can see places like Nanakup Ridge, Bullet Pool, our Buron prospect, that Data Tine have all got opportunities to add resource along and increase that life of mine. Next slide, please. And likewise, across our larger tenement position, we recently acquired through a farming agreement the Stanley joint venture project on our northeast there. Next slide, which really connects in just that area. You can see there's some sensational results there, including 8.5 meters at 33 grams. It's pre-resource, but has the opportunity to deliver some very high grade, shallow, near surface resource, and that Duggan resource just to the to the northeast there is recent drillings intercepted some very high grades as well, including 7 meters at 4 grams. So there's an opportunity there to target some of our regional prospects to add to our Katanning Gold Project. So next slide, please. So just to wrap up, we've already established a very large resource position. We're undertaking studies work at the moment, and that's to come out very shortly. What you'll see from that is a large operation producing more than 100,000 ounces per annum. That's a 3 million tonne per annum plant that we'll have on site. It's drawing power off the grid. That gives us some advantages. There's obviously cheap energy. There's recently been established the wind farm at Kojonup, so there's some opportunities to leverage off those ESG credentials from that. What we're also doing now is further expanding our resource beyond what we see here, and we've got potential for other metals beyond gold, including PGEs, because we're in very similar terrains to the Julimar discovery. So thanks for your time today, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thanks, Matthew. Yeah, quite a few questions coming through. Now, it's kind of well documented in WA at the moment. It's hard to get skilled workers. Can you talk through how you're balancing that, and what it's like to get a drill rig, how busy it is out there, and how limited is it in regards to getting employees?
Yeah, look, it's I guess the obvious thing that we see is getting good turnaround on our assays. We've probably got about 6,000 or 7,000 meters of RC drilling sitting out there with assays pending. There's nothing you can really do about it. You just have to accept that's going to take a bit longer to get your answers. In terms of skilled labour, we've been very fortunate. I think in terms of the exploration team, we've got some guys who have come on board who are very excited, very passionate about the geology. It's a very exciting project in that regard. So that enthusiasm is quite contagious and enables you to, I guess, be a bit luckier with who comes on board as a junior. So, you know, the junior sector always suffers from probably less resources than some of the bigger companies, but I think the excitement around the project and that enthusiasm from the team is really sort of counteracted that. I've been building up a studies team and recently just put on an environmental and stakeholder manager. And it's really, again, it's, I guess, the excitement around the projects and the uniqueness of this project has attracted people to it, which I think is a great thing to see externally as well, not just as the managing director.
And how large do you think Katanning could actually get to?
Look, we've got 2 million ounces in resource at the moment. The scale of the gold normalism in the belt that we're exploring at the moment, so really looking at that central and southern zone, I think has got an easy target to 3 to 5 million ounces. So we're really just touching the tip of the iceberg at the moment. And as I alluded to, there's a number of targets along the other trends outside this belt that have some very high grade mineralization. We've really been focused on that central zone to deliver the reserve position that we're working on at the moment. But we also recognize, and that you can see from the way we've been consistent with our exploration and our expenditure on that work, is that this is a much larger project. And I guess if I was looking for companies to invest in, I'd see Ausgold as probably an earlier version of De Grey with the Hemi discovery. That, you know, they had a large resource position prior to discovery of Hemi, but that consistent, good technical work, it delivers some absolutely fantastic results for shareholders.
On that note, we're out of time, but thanks for your time, Matthew. Have a nice weekend, and we'll follow with interest. That's a big resource and a big story. We've got some follow-up questions. I'll shoot them through to you over the weekend.
Great. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.